this week is talk a little bit about the benefits an organisation gets from it. So over to you. How are you, Eric?
I'm greatly. How about
Yeah,
yourself?
not too bad for a Wednesday. It's always they call it Hump Day, don't they? Yeah, halfway through the week, you're getting towards the end, back to a weekend again.
But the sun's finally shining, so I've got my window
Yeah,
open,
but
which is
remember we're in the
good.
UK, so it might not last very long.
Well, so I'm originally from Seattle, as I
Yeah,
told you, so the weather it's about the same, so I'm used
yeah.
to it.
And they always say skin is waterproof. So tell us a little bit more about the benefits that a particular or a group of customers have got from implementing OpsRamp. And I can see it in two different ways. One is the technological benefits, how they've improved delivery of service, response to issues, those kind of things. But also let's think about it from a commercial perspective, where they may have saved money or be able to generate more money with their business.
Well, let me kind of frame the problem first. I think that one of the things that we see a lot with customers coming to us is that they're inundated with data from too many places, whether it's from their on premise environment, from their cloud environments, from applications, from hardware, from services, from everything. And they just can't keep up with it and they can't make any sense of it. So they've got different silos of people. They've got these people doing container monitoring, these people doing cloud monitoring, these people doing storage monitoring. So when they have a problem, they get a group of people together and they all hash it out. And one guy says it's your fault, the other guy says it's your fault. And everybody tries to figure out what the actual problem is. That's what we see as the confusion in IT today. And as more things come out, that confusion just deepens, unfortunately. And we've gone from IT being very siloed to very conjoined, and now it's getting siloed again. So, with all of that, it adds to complexity. So, when we talk about the types of problems that customers come to us with and how we solve them, from a technical perspective, we want to do three things really well. First of all, we want to reduce the confusion by getting all of the information into one place, by understanding what technology provides what business services and the criticality of those services. The second thing that we want to be able to do is to figure out what the cause of an issue is by looking at all the underlying technology. Now, from a benefit perspective, that saves the amount of time it takes to solve issues by saving the amount of time it takes to detect issues, because that's where we see the biggest delay is in trying to figure out what is actually causing the issue. Then the last thing is being able to do predictive analytics to actually determine what might happen so that we can prevent it from happening in the first place. You mix that all in with automation, and that's really where we see a lot of technological savings when it comes to OpsRamp.
I think the other thing you were mentioning about the complexity. So it's complexity in the technology we're using within our own environments in data centers, but also this additional complexity of either one or multiple cloud providers as well. So we may be using some containers in GKE within Google's cloud platform. We may have started doing some AWS with some traditional virtualization. So again, it gets even more complicated because we've not only got our own infrastructure, we've got all sorts of other public cloud infrastructure in there as well.
And I think you could even add to that SaaS applications, which are really black holes of performance. We don't know what they're doing. So yeah, I'd add that in there as
Yeah,
well.
definitely, and a lot of people don't always think of things that they use as a utility like Office 365. They don't always think of that as a SaaS platform, but it is. They've effectively offloaded their Exchange service to Microsoft's Exchange servers, and they be delivered their mail and communication through that. And again, they may be using other things like Teams and many other things where they're sharing files and things. So again, there's a lot of infrastructure that have been effectively offloaded to other people.
And I think to illustrate that, I have this conversation quite a lot with like large enterprises, especially in the financial sector and government sector, who say we don't use any SaaS applications. And then I ask them those questions: Do you use Office 365? Oh yeah. Do you use Salesforce? Oh yeah. They're using SaaS applications, and they really don't know how they're impacting their delivery because they have integrations from their on-premise or even their public cloud things with those SaaS applications. So it's critical that all of those things get monitored and have the visibility of them in one place.
So give us an example of something where someone has actually really implemented OpsRamp, either in a proof of concept or in production, and some of the values that they've got in their organization, whether that's technical or commercial or both. If you've got examples of both, that'd be great.
Yeah, in fact, I've got a case study that we just completed today, actually. So I'm not ready to release it yet. But we did this for a large enterprise customer, a Fortune 500 company. We reduced their mean time to detect the root cause of an issue by 80% during the POV. And once they got into production, they found that resulted in a mean time to resolve of 78% better than they were doing without our tools. Now, they had multiple different monitoring tools before that were each being reviewed by different teams. They had a NOC team that was looking at things from an overall perspective, but still a majority of their team was liaising with these other teams to find out what the root cause was. One of the biggest things that they noticed, though, was just the amount of noise in the environment went down. They actually turned up the number of alerts that their systems were generating. But our AI was actually to reduce the number of alerts that they were receiving by 93%. And that's just amazing to me, because that's what causes the decision paralysis in environments. When I've got too much information, I either start ignoring it or I start discarding it. And both of those things are not good, because there's good information there. Which I think I made this point when we talked last week. It's something that humans just can't keep up with. There's just too many messages.
Yeah, we've seen
Um,
that as well, where people effectively start ignoring or even turning off the monitoring of certain infrastructure, because sometimes it looks a bit like the child that cried wolf. So eventually, they get the point where they desensitize to the amount of alerts they're getting, and in the end, if you effectively turn it off, but then you just don't see something that is real later.
Yeah, and I think as customers are maturing, they're starting to adopt better policies for problem management. And as they do that, they have to ignore less and less, because unless you can see everything that's going on, you're not going to be able to solve the problems. Which I've always said is a bit like an iceberg. The incidents, the things that people report, or the things that we actually get through, are the tip, and the problems are all the things that are holding the iceberg down in the water, the 90%. They're the things that are going to sink your ship, but they're the things that people ignore because they're simply have to, because again, humans can't process those messages.
So coming back to this customer case study then, so they started to turn on more monitoring, they were seeing more information. What happened with the volume of events and things, at that point?
Yeah, so we tracked them over a 3-month period, and we had about 3 million alerts come through, which is a lot. Now, mind you, they're managing probably 20,000 servers, another 10,000 network devices, and IoT devices. So that's even considering you've got if you say 30,000 devices sending 3 million alerts, that's a lot of alerts. So what they decided to do was to look at what was important by applying machine learning to an algorithm in OpsRamp, and letting it determine for them what was important. And then they used a training file to feed in some things that they knew were important. And like I said, we did a 93% reduction in those alerts, which let them focus then on the root causes that were happening. It's a big deal because all the alerts are still there. We're just choosing which ones to group together, which ones should be suppressed automatically. For example, one of the patterns we saw in their environment was that the login servers were slowing down the processing of logins on Monday mornings. That's not anything unusual, especially if you've got everybody working from home now. They're not used to getting into the VPN. They're not used to logging in from their home computers. So that was an anomaly that our system said, we don't need to alert on anymore. We don't need to tell you that it's going to be slow on Mondays, because we know it's always slow on Mondays. So it has not just to do with finding the root cause and discarding some alerts. It has to figure out what are things that are actually causing disruptions of services to users.
Yeah, I'm going to say that's some of those seasonal change. I say seasonal, it could be weekly, it could be daily. A lot of those things we get alerts on are things we should be able to predict anyway. But again, artificial intelligence and machine learning help us understand things better, where things are actually normal, those type of behaviors.
Well, and I think that as humans, we sometimes look at a problem that recurs and we just ignore it out of habit rather than out of knowledge. Um, I have a great example. I have a customer who used to have a branch office that on Thursday afternoons, every Thursday afternoon, their local network node would just stop working. Their router would just stop, and they knew all they had to do was go over to the closet, turn off the switch, wait 5 seconds, turn on the switch, and everything came back. They never reported that issue because it was just something they knew how to solve every Thursday. And so everybody just knew Thursday at 4 o'clock, you know you're going to lose your connection. Don't worry about it. We're just going to restart it. And I think we do that as humans. We justify that, oh, there's a problem that's happening. We know it's happening. It's not causing a real big disturbance or anything like that. But AI doesn't do that. AI says, oh, I see everything that's going on, and I'm going to alert you to the things that are important because, oh, they're related to a service. Oh, it's related to a critical application. Those are the sort of things that I think are really important.
I'm going to say, I think having more information does help. But again, as humans, as we spoke about before, having too much information makes it very difficult for us to see any patterns and understand what's really happening in there.
Absolutely. And I think that ultimately that continues on into the business, right? Because we think of things, I'm a technologist at heart, and I think of things in technology perspective, but the business doesn't. The business thinks of how is IT supporting the things that we need to do to move the organization forward, whether that's making money or if you're a nonprofit, whatever the KPIs that you're tracking happen to be. That's what's important to the business. And that's why AI is so important, because AI doesn't discern between what's a technical issue and what's a business issue. It joins those things together and makes those decisions for you.
So coming back to this original customer you were talking about with the 3 million events. So did we have any figures on the number of incidents they have and how long it takes them to resolve those incidents, and any information about how that changed after implementing OpsRamp?
Yeah, so they were originally on a 3 hour resolution for a critical issue. So a critical server or application issue was on 3 hours, and we took that down to 48 minutes. And the reason is because of the link that I mentioned earlier. If you can detect what the source of the problem is faster, you'll be able to resolve it faster, because that's where all the time is spent. It's not that when we receive a priority one alert that we don't want to go fix it, but we don't want to be fixing the symptoms. We want to fix the cause. And that's another reason that we view AI and machine learning specifically as key to that, because it can learn the patterns to tell you where the root cause truly is.
And from that, I'm sure there's a lot of cost saving in loss of service, or loss of delivery of whatever. I don't know what the customer did for a living, so from a business perspective, you can measure it in different things. Time is usually money in some respect, in that you can't deliver the service that you offer, or something happens in that period of time. Instead of being 3 hours, we reduce it to 48 minutes. There's some finance benefit in that respect, isn't there?
Yeah, so this is quite a mature organization. So they have chargebacks to both the internal departments and to external customers. So when they have a problem that can't be solved in a certain amount of time, they have to pay out damages for that. And that's, most managed service providers are used to doing that, and businesses are getting more and more used to doing that. But it's not just the cost of that; it's the cost of the people. In IT, we think about the need to keep all the technology running to support the business applications and the business services. But what we don't necessarily keep at the front of our mind is that those business services typically make revenue for the company. So when I calculate the downtime of a service, I'm calculating it based on my SLAs or something like that. But what we really need to base those on are the damage it does to the business itself. You can imagine, I remember last year and the year before, BA, for example, had a lot of problems with their website. People couldn't book tickets. People couldn't change tickets. Their ticketing went down at Heathrow Airport, for goodness sakes. That causes not only a revenue problem, but it also causes a reputation problem. And so when we talk about what we're doing and how it results in or gives results to the business, yes, there are financial results. In IT, I can save time and money on people to get them focused on IT projects, prevent them from being just playing a perpetual game of whack-a-mole, so to speak. If for the business, I can keep the services running and make sure that users have satisfaction and that their applications are always available. And for the public, if you happen to be serving the public, make sure that our reputation is intact. Because you know as well as I do, when somebody goes online to buy anything or use any service, we go and research it. We go and look on the review sites. We go to Trustpilot. We go to Which. We go look and see, what people think of these services. And if people don't think well of them, people won't use them. So it's not always just about how I save money directly, but it's how we make revenue for the business, if that happens to be the organization's goals.
Yeah, I can say there were many other organisations having similar issues. I know some of the banks like NatWest, RBS had similar issues where their internet banking outages caused people not to be able to transfer money, make payments, or even be paid. Yeah, again, it's not just the impact of not being able to be paid and things. It's also the impact of the relationship, between the customer and the bank. You don't feel comfortable that regularly using service and you can't be paid. Yeah, and again, I remember at the beginning of the COVID-19 experience for us all, a lot of people decided, let's do some work on the house or the garden, and let's buy some paint. And a lot of the sites that were trying to sell those kind of things, these DIY chains, a lot of them, their websites just could not cope with the amount of workload and the amount of transactional volume. Was it? It was a real challenging time.
I connect that to, I was here 3 years ago when the UK did Black Friday for the first time. Or 4 years ago, was it? Sorry. But it's normal for us in the US. It's almost a holiday. In fact, most people do actually have the day off of work because it's the day after Thanksgiving. But I remember I was here in the UK and people were trying to buy things online, and literally every retailer's website was crashing. People just could not keep up. And it does cause reputational damage, which actually causes financial harm. It's people don't shop with you. You're not gonna acquire those customers. But I think one of the other things that we really try to concentrate on is also the satisfaction of the people who are actually working in IT. So I mentioned that game of whack-a-mole that people play in technology. That's not a fun place to be if you're always there. And people have very high level engineers, people who have multiple certifications in cloud technologies and storage and databases and things like that, who are focusing on troubleshooting. And that's no fun for them. They want to build things. They want to expand things. They want to make their services better. And that's how they should be spending their time. And so we also link that in. And that's one of the metrics that we constantly track with our customers. Because I can talk about money and things like that. That's a good thing to do to sell a product. But afterwards, I have to talk about how we're continuing to give value to our customers. And those business things, especially as we talk to the executive sponsors in the business, are invaluable to them.
Yeah, I'm going to say if you think about that work experience side of things and how you feel about it, it's not just about what coffee you serve and what the seating looks like in the cafeteria. It's also about the day-to-day working life. If you, like you say, spend all your time putting fires out and running around with your hair on fire, it's not the most pleasant job to do. And I'm sure a lot of businesses that are in that situation have a big churn of their IT workforce as well.
Well, and think about that now from a work from home perspective. If you're working from home, what's more likely to keep you engaged with work? Actually working on a project that's getting somewhere, or just responding to tickets? It's something that also just helps people invest in their organizations and be invested in what their organizations are producing for their end customers.
Very true. So, have you got any metrics then around the commercial aspects from this case study? So, we've talked about reducing, over 3 million tickets or events down to by 92%. So, a massive reduction. So you can focus on things that were actually going wrong. We've looked at then reducing the amount of time from about 3 hours down to, I think was it 42 minutes, 48 minutes? You said. In the
40,
time to do it, but also I'm sure there was some financial benefits to the organization on the back of that as well.
Yeah, there were two main things we tracked. One was what we could do as reduction in full-time employees, and this was not to make people redundant, just so you know. It was actually to align people to the projects in the organization. They did not view this as a cost savings of we're going to get rid of people. They said, no, we're going to take these people and actually put them on things that are going to make us better as an organization. So they were able to take 18 full-time employees out of the troubleshooting, the knock, the operations team, and move them managing it. And by feeding all the alerts from that tool also into OpsRamp, they were able to refocus those people on the development of the platform itself rather than troubleshooting. So you got to think that's what, now we're at 22 full-time employee savings at an average cost of probably 60 to 70,000 pounds fully burdened. And then they also were able to reduce the number of tools they had in their environment. And they estimated that they were going to save 450,000 pounds per year. And they were looking at a 5-year contract with us. So that's about 2.5 million pounds over a 5-year period, which is just on licensing. So an incredible amount of money saved just by choosing a platform that is able to take all the data in one place and help make decisions for people about what they should be focusing on. And that can be a scary concept, but I assure you it's something that is very transparent, and we work toward good outcomes for all of our customers. And that's what I love about what I do.
Was there any calculation on, I mean, you mentioned something about chargeback. Was that particular customer that they were having to be charged for any outages and things? Did they look at the costs there as well?
So they did not reveal that to us. We got an anecdote that they expected that it would save them about 2.5 million pounds a year in those chargebacks, which is a lot of cash. The interesting thing is that the capital outlay for them for the 3 years of the project was about that number as well. So they actually were able to realize the savings right there without even having to go into all the other things. So for them, it was a no-brainer because they were able to easily say, the ROI is going to far outweigh the risk of moving off of these other platforms that we have.
So they ended up with a single platform to manage everything, less people to do it, less outage time, and actually saved money in the end because they were reducing the amount of tools they were using, but also this chargeback process because they were reducing the amount of time that they had outages for. So yeah, it sounds like a no-brainer to me. You'd want to go down that route. And I think that's sometimes one of the issues that people have is seeing the value something brings. A lot of people talk about total cost of ownership and adding everything up, every biscuit that's been bought, every cup of tea that's been drank, for the whole project and everybody in it to be able to justify it. But if you can actually see value quickly, especially in the first 6 to 12 months of a project being deployed, I think that's a much better situation to be in. You can actually see the real value it brings, but also if it does improve the quality of the job for the individuals and they can focus on building rather than putting fires out, I think that makes a massive difference as well.
Well, and to that last point you made, I'll just say one thing. It wasn't 6 months, it wasn't a year. They were able to collect those numbers in 60 days. In 60 days, they were able to determine that was a reduction. Now, as they refine things going forward, that'll get even better.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Well, thank you ever so much for today. You can say it's about 24 minutes, a little bit longer than we normally do, but I thought it was a really interesting thing to understand the value that the customer gets. But secondly, we don't always look at everything, and when we're looking at a project like this, around what the individuals are doing, whether they're building, whether they're putting fires out, whether they're actually enjoying the job, and you're churning people because they're just not enjoying it. Situation there. So to look at it from a customer's perspective and the things that they've benefited from it, but also seeing the value so quickly, I think that's excellent. So thank you very much for your time today. Hopefully we can get you back in the future and we can delve into another area.
Absolutely. Happy to help anytime.
Thank you very much.